Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris. One of the things I was frequently asked in the build-up to the 2020 elections between President Trump and Joe Biden was, what will happen to Taiwan? And one of the things I said is, if I were in Taipei, I'd be very concerned about the future if Joe Biden becomes president. Well, however he became president, Joe Biden is president today as we sit here in February of 2021. And what has it meant for Taiwan? Well, surprisingly, it appears that my projections, at least for the short term, about the fears for Taipei may prove to be incorrect. Why is that? Well, it seems that Unity Joe and his staff have realized that Taiwan is a critically important strategic partner, and it's not quite time for the leftists to abandon Taipei to its own devices as the Chinese continue to threaten their sovereignty. What are we talking about specifically? Well, according to media reports, the White House sent a letter to Taipei on the 17th of February seeking to get their help to resolve a global shortage of computer chips that is wreaking havoc on the automotive industry. The letter included the phrase, "The future is bright for U.S.-Taiwan relations amid threats from China." Wow. Now, over the past year before he left office, President Trump upped military hardware sales to Taiwan, which have long been in effect since the United States abandoned Taiwan as a diplomatic partner under the, well, I'm trying to find the right phrase for this, the Carter administration abandoned Taiwan to its own devices and switched allegiance to the Red Chinese Communist in Beijing back in 1979. Since that time, we've had an unusual diplomatic relationship with Taiwan, one that plays out in very strange ways, including at the U.S. Army War College, where students from Taiwan are not allowed to wear their uniforms. So they have to wear business suits or use their military rank. It's quite bizarre, folks. Well, not only has Trump picked up arms sales to Taiwan, helped protect itself in the past year, but something that hasn't happened since 1979 happened. Taiwan's de facto ambassador to the United States attended Biden's inauguration in January. It's the first time that Taiwan has officially been invited to a presidential swearing in since Carter abandoned Taiwan back in 1979. It really, in some respects, signals a continuation of increasing support for Taipei in the post-Trump era, which is a bit surprising, but it is interesting. In addition to that, we've also heard Unity Joe warn Beijing about its military exercises and its violations of Taipei's airspace, which has been happening on a repeated basis as Beijing tested Biden's resolve of a commitment to Taipei in January as he was inaugurated. So interesting times indeed. Well, what's going on with these computer chips? Well, the pandemic over the past year has spiked consumer demand for semiconductors across the board, for laptops, for tablets, for mobile telephones, for automobiles, for manufacturing equipment, for anything you can think of. The demand has spiked, and this has led to a serious shortfall of consumer electronics. We saw this play out in 2020 with a shortfall of over 5 million laptops in the U.S. market alone. And we've seen it play out in many, many other places, in many other roles. So Taiwan falls into this because they're a critical manufacturer of semiconductors. Now, this shortage of semiconductors that are put into cars has caused General Motors and Ford to both shut down production in some plants because they don't have enough chips in order to make the cars that they need. Additionally, this affected Volkswagen, Toyota, and Nissan overseas. This semiconductor situation has really risen the prominence of Taiwan in the eyes of those involved in foreign policy around the planet, and it has improved Taiwan's importance to both the United States, European, and Japanese automakers, all of whom have been lobbying with their government officials to get their governments to help facilitate Taiwan producing more chips and shipping them. Now, Taiwan itself is a crucial hub for global semiconductor supply. Its semiconductor sales are second in the world only to China? No, not to China. Despite the lies and myths the left constantly spreads and politicians constantly spread about the United States, we remain the world's largest by revenue semiconductor producer on the planet. That's right. The U.S. has manufacturing, folks. Did you know that? We produce and make things right here in the good old USA. That's right, including some of the most important things on the planet like semiconductors. We are the world's largest producer of semiconductors by revenue by a wide margin. Taiwan comes in second in that. And their role becomes increasingly important in the United States because in May of 2020, TSMCA, that's the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, not a very original acronym, a $35 billion annual revenue company with $12 billion in profit in 2018. Look at that, folks. Almost one-third profitability. 12 billion out of 35 billion in revenue. But TSMC announced it would build the world's most advanced 5-nanometer chip fabrication facility in Arizona. Now, when that's completed, that is likely to seriously reorient Taiwan's high-tech supply chain away from China, focused almost exclusively on the United States, to the mutual benefit of the United States, Taiwan, and frankly, to the world. Reduce dependence on the Chinese communists. Now, Washington has long been kind of, reticent to show its diplomatic ties to Taiwan, except when it comes to weapons sales. But rarely do we step up and show our support for Taiwan. But as I mentioned here, over the past year, the Trump administration, which had already been cordial towards Taiwan, towards Taipei, had stepped up its role in providing military hardware for Taipei to defend itself against Chinese communist incursions. For those unfamiliar with the situation, of course, Taiwan is on the island of Formosa, and it is the last refuge of the legitimate government of China. Well, according to them, they're the legitimate government of China. According to the United States, they're not the legitimate government of China, and that is the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. Taipei, of course, was founded by Chiang Kai-shek, whose nationalists fled from mainland China after being defeated by the communists after their long march and then assault on the Chinese nationalists, who had fought against the communists and against the Japanese for years. And so they sought refuge on Formosa and formed Taiwan. And there you have it. For many years, Taiwan was considered the legitimate government of China and had the seat at the United Nations until the Carter administration switched places, and others switched places and started supporting Chinese, communist Chinese. Anyway, so there you have it, folks. Interesting development. Taiwan's strategic importance is now magnified on the global stage. Why? Because of semiconductors. Interesting. Anyway, folks, if you're not a subscriber, why not become a subscriber? Smash that button right down there. Toggle the bell icon to get notified of updates, and give us a like. Likes drive viewership, and the folks need to know about what's happening. The world needs to know about what's happening around the planet with objective, independent analysis of these events. Take care. Thank you for your time, your patronage, and your custom.